in Richmond, Virginia.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. People are coming in. Hey guys, happy Friday.
And you see, I have a little typo there. I have the Virginia is kind of messed up, but that was just so you could let us also know where you're joining us from. We're super excited to hear with us, and for those that were here yesterday,
Claudia.
thanks for joining back. Hi. Oh, you're joining us super early from California. Hi, Claudia.
Hey y'all. Let's see. Let me see who's here. Hi Amy. Hi Asante. Hey Ashley and Ashley. Hey Glenda.
Hi, Asante.
Claudia. Haley. Hi Michelle. Hi Michelle. Hi Sherry. Hi Victoria. Good morning from Eugene, Oregon. Hey.
Yeah, you on the 3 hour time difference too. Well, 3 hours for me because I'm on the East Coast. 2 hours for Sarita.
Oh, it's early. Thank you for joining us so early in the morning. I hope
And
you're joining us with your
Asante,
coffee.
yeah, definitely. Asante, I think I haven't seen you. We haven't been on here together, I think, since I did the hip hop and resilience with my coworker Kareem. I think I remember your name from then.
Hey, Michelle, joining us from Geneva, Illinois.
Hi, Michelle. Hi.
Asante says hello. Hello, hello, hello. So we got a small crowd so far this morning. Gonna make for some good intimate conversation. I'm sure others will join us as we go deeper into today's session, today's webinar. Hey, Maxine in New
Hi,
Jersey. Hey, girl.
hi, Maxine.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Victoria. So glad you guys could join us. And Alex, just let me know when you want to get started and we'll
I think we're good to
this
go. Hi,
up.
Stephanie.
All right, so I want to welcome you guys to Staying Positive, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. This is our daily webinar. And today's discussion is going to be on a more perfect union, getting to know each other. I'm your host for today is Alexandra James, and I am co-hosting. I'm Sarita Sashington. We're super excited you guys have chosen to join us for this Friday to close out your week with us. Thank you so much. We're going to have this really great conversation talking about our more perfect union. And so you can go to the next slide, please.
And we
Selena,
also have we have our colleague Selena in the background being
who's
tech
our tech
support.
support. Thank you, Selena. So today, our ways to engage. If you aren't talking, please put your phone on mute. When you're ready to comment, you can raise your hand. Hey, Kawana, we'll unmute you. And when you'll need to unmute yourself to be heard, please be patient with us. Feel free to type your comments in the group chat. Make sure it's going to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it'll just go to us. So thank you, Selena. Next slide, please. Of course, we have our agreements, and this is for our emotional safety. We want, as you guys share today, and as we share, that people feel comfortable in sharing. So speak from your own experience and use I statements. Golden rule, treat other people the way you want to be treated. This is really our cafe agreements all wrapped up in one little nice gift package for you. So don't give advice and no judging and all that stuff. And lastly, full presence. Please no multitasking, because if you bring your whole self to this piece, you're gonna get so much out of it. And we're showing up and we're not multitasking. So let's do this together. And thank you for all the agrees already in the chat. Keep them coming. Thank you so much. All right. I'm glad you guys are agreeing to keep the space safe. I'm gonna turn it over to Alex.
So, welcome, healing and becoming a more perfect union with the current political, social, economic climate that's happening in our country right now. from COVID to what we see happening politically, we wanted to share with you our More Perfect Union Cafe. It was created years ago, but we think it's so timely for what's going on. And so, of course, this is just a reminder of who we are, and what the promise of this great American experiment is supposed to be, right? Moving us towards a more perfect union despite the turmoil that's in our history. One of the things that's made our country so great has been the ability to at least attempt to heal and attempt to move past some of the dark parts of our history. Usually, when we are at our most darkest places, is when you see the beauty of the American spirit, of the American people across all races, genders, and socioeconomic levels. And so, just a reminder of what the preamble in the Constitution and where this term, a more perfect union, comes from, and how it's supposed to be that we are establishing as a whole country that it's a more perfect union for justice, domestic tranquility, common defense, and the general welfare and blessings of liberty to ourselves and for our future generations. Next slide. And so, we're all anxious, no matter what side of the political spectrum people fall on. We see this division. And in order for us to begin to move forward, we have to think about, what does that look like now? What does it mean for us to really live to what the founding fathers of this country said was supposed to be, right? This more perfect union, towards a more perfect union. And so these two quotes, I think, really personifies where we are as a society. And so one is from Senator Barbara Boxer, who says it's very important to face the grief, face the anger, and then get into a place where you are ready to fight. Because if you go back to the history of the United States of America, our founders said that we're giving you a republic if you can keep it. And they also said we have a constitution and we're going to form a more perfect union. And so I think we're in this space again where we're the catalyst around this. And then everything that's happened around injustice and disparities with people of color and police brutality with African American as well as other people of color that's been brought to the forefront. Of course, many of us know this is not new, particularly African Americans and people of color and our allies who have been aware. It's just now we have this technology. And so a lot of things have been caught on tape. COVID has brought to the forefront the medical disparities that happens and inequities. And so in order for us to get to this more perfect union, there has to be this acknowledgement around the historical trauma and oppression of women, of African Americans, of the indigenous population, of the LGBTQ community. All of this has to be acknowledged in order to really heal. And so I think President Barack Obama's quote said, he says that in the white community, the path to a more perfect union means acknowledging that what ails the African American community does not exist in the minds of Black people, and that the legacy of discrimination and current incidents of discrimination, while less overt than in the past, are real and must be addressed. And I just say that's the foundation. And like I said earlier, the other marginalized communities, from women to the LGBT community, that could also fit into this quote. Until there's some real healing, not blaming, acknowledging what's happened doesn't mean it has to be a comfortable situation, but it can be a healing conversation. Next slide, please. And so with that being said, I think that Senator House Majority Whip James Clyburn said it best, like, we're still in the search of a more perfect union. I think with before this current climate that we were in, and with Barack Obama being the president, there was some people in our society, we had hope, but we felt like, oh, everything is great. And what I think the last few years have brought about is saying, no, everything isn't great. We are evolving, but there are still a lot of problems. And when you pull back the cover, there's still a lot of issues. And of course, we all can't be responsible for changing the whole society, but society is made up by individuals and families and us as providers. So, what is it that we can do in order to get us to this more perfect union? And so, what we decided to do at Be Strong Families, and you can go to the next slide, is that we created this more perfect union parent cafe, right? So, those of you who are familiar with us, we have our values of our organization. It's like being authentic and liberation and love, etc. So based on our values, the foundation of our organization is about disruption, right? Disrupting the provider-centered, human-centered system in support of families and communities and in promoting wellness, making sure that we are having providers and doing in our professional development that we're moving towards this approach where the providers are the end all be all, and it's kind of like in this savior situation to where we're empowering parents and moving towards having a model where providers are supporting parents to do the work that they need to do within their families and within their communities. So that's what we're known for as far as parent cafes. We ask when we are training people that it's used as a parent engagement strategy and that is representative of a a paradigm shift rather, that the parents are the experts on their own lives and that all of the providers need to do is offer support, resources, etc. So we all know that those are familiar with us. We develop parent cafes with parents and professionals. Everything that we do is a co-creation process, and it's about the expertise and experiential learning as a way to strengthen the families, because of course it's based on the protective factors, and it's about an inside deep self reflection and peer-to-peer learning for positive family development and transformation. And one of the things about all of our parent cafes, not just a more perfect union, why it is an equity approach and it's a conversation technology, is that every voice is valued. And I think that's a microcosm of what should happen in our society, right? Every voice is valued. You don't always have to agree, but if you value each other's voice, there's always some common ground that people can come to and have some mutual understanding. And so the cafes offer providers and program participants an opportunity to experience equity in action as a basis for replicating the same equity and parent voice and parent leadership, authentic parent leadership throughout their programs. Next slide.
Hey Alex, can I weigh in? Can I
Sure.
just share? I'm just thinking when we created this More Perfect Union Parent Cafe, it was interesting because this came about because it was around the time that agencies were blowing up, or not agencies, but more and more the um the abuse of police brutality to African American men. And so they were, our men were being killed by police on this, in these big numbers, and it was all over the place. And we had a staff cafe, right? Staff conversation. It was really a staff conversation. And so many of us on staff had sons, African American sons, and we didn't even have this deck yet. We were just having the conversation in a cafe style setting. And I remember there being so many tears because the others on staff didn't realize that this conversation and what was happening was making the African American parents so excuse me, anxious, because our sons, this is happening to our sons, and how nervous we were every time our sons went out and every time they got stopped. And it just brought so much emotion to the table and so many things. And we were being transparent the way that we do in cafes, so vulnerable and open. And then we came to the conversation like, this needs to be a conversation. Like, parents need to have this conversation. This needs to be something that we're talking about, because who's talking about this? And because we're a diverse agency and diverse staff, then a lot of healing took place in that conversation and during that time. And then we were like, we got to have this conversation. We got to bring the parents, and this needs to be a deck. And so it took me back as you were talking. It took me back to how this piece came about, how we got to this more perfect union deck. And then when we took it to the parents and got their input, it was like, oh, this is a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, and I remember it was actually sparked, and this will tell you the forward thinking and how long ago it was. It was around Trayvon Martin. The Trayvon Martin incident had happened, and then there was this conversation. And you
Yeah.
can go to the next slide, Selena. And as
Mhm.
they were creating this process, it broadened from what I understand. It came, okay, let's just not talk about police brutality. Let's
Mhm.
talk about, we had staff at the time who have children with special needs, and you have, people with disabilities and they're discriminated against, which is brought to the forefront. And so because of that, we developed this to create these, like, while the parent cafe is about how you have safe spaces and build your family within your
Mhm.
home,
Yeah.
what Sarita is sharing was like, okay, but how do you parent and navigate within the broader context of society? To exactly what she's talking about, the anxiety, particularly African American parents have around their, used to be just their sons, but like with Breonna
Mhm.
Taylor, I have daughters, and now I'm like, oh my goodness, right? It's
Yeah.
expanded. And so there was this extensive collaboration process, which Sarita talked about, to create the more perfect union and our amplify campaign that we've been talking about. And the premise is how do we build a society that we want to live in by amplifying the positive and building bridges? And that building bridges piece is so important. And I'm hoping as we move into the next year that the larger society that will happen, but regardless of what happens in the larger society, it can be done within our families and our communities, with the people and the families that we serve. Because again, society is made up by individuals and families. So there are things that we can do. And so the More Perfect Union Conversations occurs at the nexus of social justice and parenting. It's organized, of course, like all of our cafes, around the protective factors. And it's the questions about shared civic values, freedom, prosperity, safety, justice, and healing, to assist parents in talking to their children about difficult issues and brainstorming how to keep their children safe. And the issues are mass incarceration, gun violence, policing and police brutality, bullying, immigration, queer and trans issues, religious discrimination, such as anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, housing rights. We don't think a lot of times about what happens with housing and discrimination, gender equality, feminism, racism, racial justice, and disability. And so we wanted to share this little background about the parent cafes, but also and the power we think that they hold right now because of what's happening in society. And so we wanted to share with you some questions and have some conversations around some of the questions from the deck and get to experience just a taste. Those that are familiar, and Sarita will tell you, this is in no way like the actual parent cafe, but if you do want to experience it, Sarita does a cafe presentation. I think, well, once a month you do one that people can join in a free experiencing.
Yeah, we do it twice a month, and you can find them on our website. The new dates are not up yet. They will be up by January. There is one happening right now that just ended, but it's free. And the great thing about these is that it isn't free. It's at no cost to you if you want to join. But but I love these because they do allow, like, parent, they help me. I can control a lot of things in my own community, in my own home. Like in my own home, I can control a lot of stuff, and I know how to talk about those things. I don't necessarily know how to talk about the things that are outside of my control, like these issues. And so even as I sit around the table with other parents having these conversations, then I'm thinking, oh my God, I feel more confident as a parent to go and have this conversation with my children. And then if I get it, then I can give it to my kids, and they can take it to the community, and then and that really leads to the healing perspective of this.
And even the vulnerability of not knowing, right?
Right.
Like other
Yeah.
parents, like Turn, I struggle with this too. Like I don't know what to really tell my children about. I'm scared every time you walk out the house, and so I think to me that's always the beauty of the parent cafes. You get solutions, but you get to be vulnerable and you get to feel like, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing this
Right.
anxiety while I'm parenting and trying to build and strengthen my family. Next slide,
Definitely.
Selena.
So let's have the conversation. This is where those agreements come into play. So where they're so important. And we ask you all the time to share stuff, and you do. You're great at sharing. So thank you for that. um, so we know that you're used to sharing and during these webinars. So today though, these questions are going to be a little more personal even than before, because they are from the More Perfect Union Parent Cafe deck. So we're going to encourage you to have the conversation with us, okay? And again, this is just a taste. Cafes are held in meeting rooms and with hosts, with people who are trained room hosts. But this is just a conversation to give you a taste. So first question, and you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll identify you and let you speak. So yes, Sherry, exactly. Treat people the way you want to be treated. So resilience, this is based on, each question is based on a protective factor. So the protective factor for this first question is, how do you protect your and your family's freedom and the freedom of people who are different from you? How do you protect your freedom and your family's freedom and the freedom of people who are different from you? Please feel free to drop it in the chat or to
Raise
raise your
your
hand. We can
hand.
unmute you. We'd love to have you. Alex, you want to answer the question? How do you protect your freedom and your family's freedom and the
I'm
freedom of people who are different from you? That's heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. I was sitting there while you were talking, thinking about it. So I think one of the ways that I protect my freedom and my family's freedom is one, I'm have to agree with Sherry in the sense of following that golden rule and treating people the way that I want to be treated. I think that breeds more uh, karma or sowing seeds of respect.
Mhm.
The next piece I think is through knowledge, right? I think you can't really understand what freedom and how to protect that unless you really understand the historical context. So I'm speaking now as an African American woman with African American identical twins. And just today, my daughter told me about an incident she had within her online classroom that got political, and she was like singled out for stating her opinion, while someone else is not singled out for her opinion. And so that's when I think that conversation around you have to stand in what you believe is right
Mhm.
and what you think is just, but it doesn't mean all the time that everybody is going to
Mhm.
acknowledge that. So there has to be, again, that sense of knowledge, historical context, understanding our resilience as African Americans to be able to kind of throw some of that stuff off. So
Mhm.
I think that's, one thing. And then people different from me, I've always been about community programming. I've always been about activism. And so while I have, you know, worked specifically for African Americans and people of color, because I do that, that expands to all people. I'm always about like what's right, what's just, advocating for fairness and teaching my daughters that you do the right thing regardless of what other people do around you. Um, and we have
Thank
some
you.
comments. You're
We
very
do.
welcome.
Very said. Be respectful and thankful for those you serve and bless and encourage others. Beatrice said, I protect my freedom and my family's freedom, keeping my personal life private. Tamara said, I was raised to speak up for what is right, even if it's uncomfortable. I can't sit passively if someone is being disrespected. I may not always know the right thing to say, but that doesn't mean I should stay quiet. Mm.
Yes, I love that.
Beatrice said, respecting the privacy of the people I have in contact. And Sherry said, be true. Think about my grandparents and if I would say or act that way with them.
I love that.
Tamara said, in my work, I always try to learn as much as I can about the families with whom I work. I ask how they feel, how they identify, what they need, and what they do in their families, etc. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you. Yeah, this is just like in cafes where people share and we learn from one another as we
Michelle,
share.
Michelle said, I
Michelle
think
said,
that in order to to empathize with others, we need to look for places in our lives where we have felt injustice of freedom being taken away and be sure to look through that lens when participating in conversations. I think that is so important. That's how you get to that mutual understanding because the reality is, and it sounds so cliche and trite when I say this, but this is
Mhm,
what I think happens in the cafe. I've seen it happen between providers and different people of socioeconomic classes. When you think like that, Michelle, you see the humanity in each other, right?
mhm,
When you always put yourself in other people's shoes, you see the humanity, and I think that's what's happening in society with all of the divisiveness that's going on. Everybody's only seeing through their box and not even trying to understand where the other person is coming from.
mhm. And I think too, Tamara mentioned about trying to learn as much as she can about families she worked with and things like that. And I agree because I just feel like parent cafes are such a great exercise in cultural humility. That's that lean in. Like I'm not the expert. Let me find out more about you. Let me find out the things that I think I know. It's going to challenge my biases so that I'm able to say like, you know what? I don't know everything there is about that person or that race, those people. Let me lean into discomfort of learning more. Michelle said, then we feel like we're in us instead of in us and them. Yes. And
Yes,
Tamara said, yes, Michelle, there should be no us and then we are all us.
we are all us. I
Yes, we are
love that.
all us. Let's go to the next question. Thanks, guys. Support, concrete support. Concrete support is, so resilience is to bounce back, right? We know that this support, concrete support, is speaking to where do you go in your community, right, to get the resources you need. This is brick and mortar, which is different from our friends and family. This is like agencies in your community that provide a service. So concrete support, how do agencies and organizations become safe spaces?
And I think Michelle hit it on the, was it Michelle or Tam? It was Tamara when she said taking the time and seeing the families we work with as people and their
Mhm,
identities and their background. I think if we did that across the board, we could break down the barrier that we all know exists, where families feel like agencies don't really care, especially particularly like in child welfare. There was like this button of
mhm,
heads. But when you have someone that's actually taking time to learn and care about you, it makes it a safe space.
mhm.
Diverse staff.
Yeah.
Allegra said having a diverse staff. Indeed, representation matters. It
Mhm.
matters.
Yeah, I think that's why. And I was the last time I was here, I was think I was sharing with people. That's one of the reasons why I came to Be Strong, right? And because it did feel like a safe space with me. I love that the parent voice was embraced and heard, and it wasn't just a figurehead like, oh yeah, we want parents, but we don't really want parents. Do you know what I mean? Or we want parents, but we don't put any money behind parents.
Or we want parents, but there's only like
They
one
they align
parent.
with my values. One
Exactly.
right, yeah, one parent, right? But I think organizations and agencies become safe spaces um, when they open the space for people to share and be a part. Like nothing about us without us. Those kinds of things. Making sure that they have not just diverse staff, but also the people in the community being a part of the stuff that's happening there. Like, when people show up in communities, like we come in to help, and then they haven't talked to the people in the community, the hero complex, like we come in because we know y'all need help, and we go, we the saviors, but we didn't ask for y'all help. we were we were good before y'all got here. And that's not what we need help with. Find out what we need help with, like what you talked about, like the caring piece. And I'm always saying, like, parents don't know how much you care unless they don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And
Definitely.
that goes a long way. So we had some
So,
stuff in the chat.
yep, I'll take it. Elder said, be open and embrace all families you work with, for sure. Allegra said, staff having good follow through, consistency, flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
reliability.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that right there is just, that's key. Michelle said,
Yep.
it really resonated with me when Sarita said the parents are the experts on their children. If we don't truly believe that parents hold some expertise, we can easily see them as a problem.
Yes.
If we treat people as problems, how can we expect people to feel and share respect with us and their children? Michelle, that is
Yes.
so crucial.
Yes.
Tamara
Mm-hmm.
said, yes, we just had a conversation about this the other day in the webinar here. The presenter, she can't remember her name, said if you go in to help and don't ask what people need, then you're just intruding.
Then you're just intruding. I'm sorry. Colonizing came to mind.
But right, and I also thought about like the ones that we having
I'm
about the
sorry.
the webinar, but no, but the webinar is about colonization of the mental health series that we've been
Mm-hmm.
having. I think it is really important, um, even when you think about colonizing, because what does that mean? That means that you're
Mm-hmm.
taking over something, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
taking over
Mm-hmm.
something. You're not
Mm-hmm.
asking questions. And I think when it comes to parent leadership and parent engagement, what I hear Tamara and Michelle and Allegra, all of them are saying the same theme is how, and what you've been saying is, if agencies and organizations are going to become safe spaces, the
Mm-hmm.
only way for them to become safe spaces is to actually include the people that you quote unquote are serving, which,
Mm-hmm.
right, in
Mm-hmm.
the decision making process, not just their
Yes.
voice, not
Yes.
just asking them what they need, but in the
Mm-hmm.
decision making process before you decide to do something. And that's a paradigm shift that has to
Mm-hmm.
happen within
Mm-hmm.
agencies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it does take you out of that comfort zone of I know because I have this degree and I have that degree and I
Right.
have this and that as the provider. But I have learned so much in parent cafes and in my life from everyone,
Yeah.
everyone, regardless of academic accomplishments or professional
Mm-hmm.
accomplishments, people's
Mm-hmm.
lived experiences where wisdom is created.
Definitely. And can I just say too, with the More Perfect Union cafes, because of the social justice aspect of it, man, I mean, I am like my biases and and the stereotypes that I had are being challenged all the time. And I'm able to see things from a different point of view, from somebody else's point of view, and thinking, oh, so that's not true. Like, oh, it's almost like it's almost like it's so funny because based on this, okay, I'm gonna say this and then move along, but based on this, it was so I'm very real about stuff, okay? So just know this. I was watching a movie the other day and I said, my God, I hate this. Why do they always make white women in movies fall all the time? So they look so helpless. It's like, why they always gotta look so helpless? Like they don't know how to do any. Why is that, right? And then I was like, oh, and it took me back to a conversation that I had in More Perfect Union Cafe where I was talking to somebody. We were sharing our thoughts and experiences, and she was sharing her strength, and I was saying, you know, this is amazing. This is so great. I'm glad that I was in this room with this person having this conversation. And then when that came across the screen, I thought back to that conversation. I was like, this is why it's so important not to shape people or whatever based on what you see on TV or social media or whatever. These conversations are the type of conversations that I need to have in order to see people in a different light, and not the light that's just being given to me or showed to me through social media,
Yeah,
through
and
the
through
news,
television, right?
through television. Yeah, social media, television, right? I need to have these type of conversations because then I can share these with my kids and break down all of that stuff that's not true. Those stereotype type things. Does that make
Right, but
sense? Okay.
no, it totally makes sense
I don't know if
because
I
what you're
said.
talking, no, what you're talking about when I see and is the how they perpetuate and then particularly like with white women, but then women in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole concept why womanism or feminism is so important that women are helpless, and
Right.
then we're helpless and we need someone, and all of those type of things. Because
Right.
the reverse of that, if we're not helpless and we're
Right.
leaders, then we're too aggressive or we're the
Right.
angry black woman. And so I think when you have those one-on-one conversations, because we've
Mm-hmm.
all been programmed with these biases through
Right.
exactly like you said,
Yeah.
television, through things passed on from
Right.
generations.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. Let's go to the next. Do we have any more things in the chat? This is a good conversation. Are you guys? Are
Yeah,
y'all picking up
Tamara.
what we putting down?
Tamara said, yes, at the agency I used to work for, they really tried to embody Ubuntu, which dissipates the us and them mentality. It's more I am because of who we are and being self through others. I try to keep that with me. I hope I
Mm,
pronounced that right. That looks like a Kiswahili word.
mhm.
So if I didn't, help me out, Tamara.
Thank you guys. This is a good conversation. I think maybe it's a good conversation. Are you guys picking up what we're putting down, or you're like, this is just too much? Let's go to the next one. We have some more questions. Thank you, Allegra. Ubuntu.
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 Ubuntu. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is from our knowledge protective factor. This is a knowledge of parent and child development, right? This one really speaks to developmental stages of parents and parents and children, right? And so and if we understand stages, how will be less how much less likely it will be to be frustrated if we understand stages, right? So how do you prepare your children for encountering stereotypes about themselves? How
Michelle
do
has
you
this
prepare your
comment.
children? All right, go ahead. What she
Yeah,
got, girl?
Michelle said a good way to have kids look at the potential impact of media is to ask them, how would an alien from outer space describe people if all they knew of people was what they learned from watching our media? I think that
Ooh,
is awesome.
ooh,
They would be
yes,
like, what is wrong with you, unevolved
right,
human beings?
right, right. Uh,
And I have
so,
a lot of friends from different places,
uh-huh,
and I really remember I was in driving school. This is in high school, right?
mhm,
And it was in the '90s for me. And so I remember this Chinese sister was in there, and she had literally just come to America with her family, and we
mhm,
were talking, and through driving, through the driving school. And she said, if before I came here, all we saw about African Americans were that you were prostitutes and pimps and drug dealers through the movies and
to the
through the
movies.
one side of hip hop
Yeah.
where that only the gangster rap was shown versus all the conscious and positive hip hop. So yeah, I think that's so important. What you were saying, Michelle, to have kids view that a different way.
So thank you guys for sharing. Anybody want to tackle this? How do you prepare your children for encountering stereotypes about themselves? This question makes me think of my daughter and my Misha babies. So I have three, and they're 11, 7, and 2. And I remember my daughter. I think for us, it's like changing the narrative that people say to them about different different things. So for instance, my daughter changing the conversation from, no, your hair is not nappy, your hair is curly, is tightly coiled, and always sort of coming back when people say those things. And it's funny because I, as a mom, teaching, I'm learning a whole lot as I'm watching, myself involved, like in different ways, and modeling that with my own kids and us, because my children are young adults. So then, I'm learning a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff. because my kids are young adults. So us going back and forth is how we like having the conversation about things, um, is how we deal with when they hear different people saying stuff about them that's stereotypical things. Then we have the conversation, no, and teaching them that it's okay to speak up for yourself and to say, no, that's not. So for me, I model it. I don't like when people call my hair dreads, call them sister locks. They're locks. And then when people say, oh, you wear dreads, and I say, no, they're locks, and correcting them and being okay with that. And so I think not only have I done it, my daughter has taught me to do it. And then we've been teaching my Misha babies how to do it, right? To
Right.
speak up
Because
when they
people don't
encounter
know
those
that it
things.
comes out of saying that they're dreadful. It comes out of some historical context in Jamaica and people viewing the associating locks only with Rastafarism, but
Mm-hmm.
them having stereotypes about people
Yeah.
who are Rastas. So there's nothing dreadful. They're locks, right? So Sherry says my son was bullied for years in school, and oh, the chats are coming. My son was bullied for years in school. We went to school and talked with the principal and the counselor, and they said he was experiencing life skills. Really? And I said, yeah, really. So our
Really?
family supported him no matter what. And when his sister got involved, things got a bit better. Allegra says people need to be educated. She said all the stereotypes they hold, we all have them, but we first need to be aware of them. I agree, and I think I have taught my daughters the beauty of their history from little, and I had them doing
Mm-hmm.
affirmations when they're little, like tiny, tiny, like 2 and 3, and I whisper in their ear when they would sleep, "You're beautiful, you're intelligent, you're creative," and
Mm-hmm.
about trying to get into their subconscious. So when they had a bullying experience, or when they've had issues, they're kind of just like, "Ugh, my mama said I'm such and such and such and such," or
Mm-hmm.
that's a stereotype, or even as recent
Mm-hmm.
in the class, one of the this classes they're honors classes, and unfortunately they're one of the few kids of color in the classes, so they went around and asked what food they like, and all the kids was like chicken and watermelon, and they were kind of like joking and being funny. This happened like a couple of months ago. And so when my daughters got to me, she was like, "Mike, I like watermelon, right?" She was like, "And I do like chicken." She was like, "But I was like pasta. I like pasta, all kind of pasta." She said because I felt like they were snickering and being funny, and so. But she
Mm-hmm.
said, when she gave her response, and then the teacher kind of like was startled. She said, "Mom, I just looked at it like they don't know, they don't understand, they're trying to be funny," and she really wasn't affected by it because she says like I know who I am, I know what they were doing, so I just kind of what I call
Mm-hmm.
taught her duck back mentality, like you let stuff roll off of you,
Yeah.
like water on a duck's back. And so then
That's
Tamara says, I live with my adult daughters and 2 grandchildren, 4 and 5.
mm-hmm.
We talk about it and celebrate the differences in people. The conversation is ongoing and it's so natural and comfortable now. We don't have Barbies in this house. We have a collection of creatable world dolls. Hey, if you aren't familiar, please check them out. Incorporating scenarios into dramatic play helps kids practice situations before they encounter them. Exactly. Those dolls are great and diversity is beautiful.
Thank you for that. I'm writing that down. Creatable world dolls.
And I have to say, like the generation, my kids are 14, so their generation Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
because the world's got small through social media, they are so advanced and accepting and
Mm-hmm.
loving of each other. Like my
Mm-hmm.
daughters are like super they told me last night, "Mommy, when we get 16, we want to go to Japan." And I'm thinking like maybe 18. Because they looked it up like it's $1,000 for this, but they love anime. They love their friends are super diverse. Like they don't have some of the same views that you could see from 20 years ago where people kind of stayed within their
Yeah.
own group. They're way
Yeah.
more diverse.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I'm seeing that with mine too. And I think too, another thing very quickly before we move on is um I my and I told you my daughter has been teaching me, right? Like to learn all these, what do you call them? Microaggressions, Alexandra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
even like challenging when people are talking about creating a narrative for my Misha babies. Like, oh, they're very aggressive. No, they're not very aggressive because they're outspoken or because they're sharing, or because they have a viewpoint. It's not being aggressive. It's, they're sharing, right? So talking about that. What did Tamara say?
Yes, Tamara. Yes, I'm learning so much from the younger generations. My daughter schooled me on the daily. Yes, and one of my daughter is so into K-pop. Yeah, my goddaughter's into K-pop. It's like a whole situation, like a whole situation. And I think to that point though, with this generation and the stereotypes, it's
Hmm.
not the diversity. It's not that superficial. Oh, we're all
Right.
rainbow pot theory and melt everybody down, which I hate. It is really diversity. It's I
Hmm.
can be who I am as a person of African descent and
Yes.
be fully in that and fully present and
Hmm.
also appreciate and love my Latino friends and my Latinas
Yes.
friends and my Korean friends, and so that's the piece that gives me so much hope towards getting this more perfect union with this new generation. We need to catch up for
Tamara
real.
said they're making us talk about and think about things we really hadn't in years past. Yes, girl. Agree, agree, agree. Let's go to our next slide. It's a good conversation. You guys got it good. All
Thank
right,
you.
relationships, right? We all parents all need friends. That's the parent friendly and talking about how our family and friends show up for us, with the moral support, emotional support. You need somebody to unwind, all that stuff. So, how does forgiveness affect your personal relationships, health, and well-being? How does forgiveness affect your personal relationships, health, and well-being? Anyone want to tackle this one?
Well, it's hard. Forgiveness to me is a spiritual practice, and I know sometimes it's so hard. Um, but I always operate under that forgiveness is about it's for me and not for the other person, right? Like I'm forgiving you so I can release it versus
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding on to it. Now, that doesn't mean I
Yeah.
might enter into the same type of relationship with you because I don't think forgiveness means be gullible,
Uh-huh.
right? But it does mean that I forgive you. And I think if we're going to move forward in this country and really get to this more perfect union, there's going to have to be some level of forgiveness
Forgiveness.
on both sides. Yeah,
Tamara
somebody.
said, oh, through all the trauma I have survived, I realized that forgiveness is something I do for me, not for the other person. Yes, she said, once I realized that, it got much easier. Allegra said, it's so important. If we don't forgive, we are holding on to anger and resentment that only hurts us. Forgive does not mean forget. And Tamara said, great minds think alike. We're making the
Definitely.
same point. Definitely. I, you know, to that point, right? Are you an easy forgiver or a hard forgiver? Because I'm an easy forgiver, but I live with a hard forgiver. Like he holds on to stuff. I'm easy. And I find too, like, not only am I an easy forgiver, I'm an easy forgiver because I don't like all the stuff in the background. I don't like tension and I don't want to hold on to it. I would rather just like let it go and, pray for you or something so that I can move
On.
forward and not take all that stuff with me. That's stressful for me. Holding on to stuff feels stressful for me. So I'm an easy forgiver.
So I think Tamara says she's easy. Michelle says she totally agrees with Tamara, not that she's experienced a bunch of trauma, but I just don't want to live in a brain space where I have to hold
Yes.
on to what someone did to me.
Yes.
And then Tamara also, that was what Michelle said. And then Tamara said, yes, we need to move on. We are so on the same page. So, to your
Yes.
question, I am an easy forgiver until it becomes a repeated pattern. I like you I don't believe in going to bed arguing. Let's just talk
Mhm.
about it. We can
Yeah.
go toe to toe, head to head. But if we go toe to toe, head to head, this the second time and the third time, I'm gonna forgive you, but then I'm gonna have to say, okay, now I have to set boundaries. You
Yeah.
you can't, be in my space.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think it's hard. it becomes hard for me when it's those patterns. I have to struggle with that forgiveness because I'm like, okay, we done talked about this. We
Mm-hmm.
agree what we both did. We both acknowledge what we both could do differently. Because I'm always about, even if someone has done something to me, what
Yeah.
did I contribute to it? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I allowed it,
Yeah.
right? I didn't set
Yeah.
the boundary, so it's on me too. But yeah, so easy when it's like first time patterns, I have to pray and
Well,
I
you know
struggle.
what? I'm gonna say this after I read this. Michelle said forgiveness does not mean the same as reconciling with the person either. We can forgive to let go of anger, but it may not be possible or safe to work on reconciling with someone.
Yes,
And Tamara
ma'am.
said, I agree, Michelle, and agree, Alexandra, boundaries are difficult sometimes. And I just want to say this. I found um and it was so funny because I had a conversation with my husband once and I asked him, I said, you're a hard forgiver. I'm an easy forgiver. I said, why? But you forgive me, right? And this is what he said to me. He said, I hold on to this. He said, that's because I choose to forgive you. I have to forgive you, otherwise we wouldn't be married a long time. but but the reality is this real talk, because forgiveness is something that I choose. It's a choice, just like with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I have to choose to forgive. I can choose to hold on and let that thing just, whatever. And like when it's your kids, when it's my husband, when there's people that I can't really cut off so quickly, like, I'm done with you, cut you is, like scissors, like the kids say, cut you like the scissors or whatever it is. I can't do that with my kids. I can't do that with my husband. So then I have to choose to forgive and find a way to create those boundaries per se, you know what I mean? Or see how we can fix this so that it doesn't keep happening. But for me, when he said that forgiveness is a choice, and I was like, oh, that's real talk. It is a choice.
And thinking about what Michelle was saying about reconciling, I think I totally agree with what she said, but I think the next step of human evolution is to forgive even when we don't want to with each other, right? And I don't know
Yep.
the answer to this. I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking now again about this whole more perfect union, and these opposing sides.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some level of forgiveness for everything that's happened. You do
Yeah.
not forget. I think it's more about if you truly are forgiving someone and they're truly apologetic,
Mm-hmm.
um and it's truly those type of conversations, then there is really a space for reconciliation. I think when the
Yeah.
accountability is not there and you are just forgiving for yourself, I think that's when you can't reconcile. So I don't know how, beyond having these types of conversations, and people need to do
Yeah.
more perfect union cafes, you get to that without the conversations in the larger societal context.
Yeah.
Because like even within a more perfect union, until there's some acknowledgement about the historical trauma of people of color and women
Mm-hmm.
in this country, like
Mm-hmm.
real acknowledgement, we're gonna keep being in this circular pattern. But that's just my little free flowing thought.
All right.
um
Bridget said, I forgive, but I don't forget. Yes, girl. Tamara says, so true, goes hand in hand with happiness, which is also a choice. Yes. Sherry said, forgiveness is something that we can do for our own mental well being. We can't hold on to the hurt and wrongdoing, so we can choose to not be involved with those people. Yes. Michelle said, I've heard a grudge described as allowing someone to live rent free in our minds. And sometimes we hold grudges and people don't even realize what we're upset about. Yes. Real talk. Tamara
and
agrees with you, Michelle. And Sherry said, wow, that's good. Michelle said, yes, I think it takes two participants to reconcile, whereas forgiveness can happen solo.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's it. You just summed up what I was trying to explain, and from that, moving from the individual to society. So yeah, forgiveness is solo, but reconciliation happens with two people.
Yes. Real
Allegra
talk.
says yes, so true. Oh, it's 1:52. God, the
Oh
time
my
has
gosh,
popped.
that time went fast. All right, what's our next slide? Let's let's see. Oh, good. Whew. All right. So Jennifer said we need a thumbs up icon. I know I think that's this webinar format. We don't get a chance to do thumbs up.
Yeah,
Uh
exactly.
So she has dropped the poll she's opened the poll. So please feel free to do that. Do you want to go ahead and do these
Sure.
slides?
And once you fill out the poll, if you can share on social media this week with continuing our hashtag amplify about a more perfect union. I want you to use the hashtags tag Be Strong Families. So in the chat right now, if you could say hashtag amplify, and I'll start off verbally and say hashtag amplify forgiveness is solo and reconciliation takes two people. I really
Hey,
love that. If we could just
that's
spread
a
that to
hashtag.
the society, that would be
That's
great.
a hashtag for your team. That's a hashtag. Hashtag amplify. Go ahead and
uh
drop your hashtags. Hashtag
we got
amplify good conversations. Yes, thank you, Tamara. Amplify. I'm gonna say hashtag amplify more perfect
yeah.
union. Yes. And while we're waiting for your amplifies, don't forget the new dates will be up there by next week. Feel free to go on the webinar and join us anytime. In January, go ahead and join us for a more perfect union cafe. They are about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So join us. We love to have you. And they're of no cost to you. We have them in the morning and the evening.
So Tamara says amplify good conversations. Bridget and Sherry, great minds think alike. They said hashtag amplify forgiveness. Tamara said thanks Alex and Sarita. Thanks everyone. Great conversation today. Elder said hashtag amplify forgiveness. David said thank you so much. This webinar was very informative. Thank you, David. Michelle said thanks so much. This was awesome. I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. We could have keep going. I'm gonna have to come to one of your one of your four perfect union. Thank you, Allegra. Next slide, Selena. So you see here we have these upcoming webinars for next week. Monday, the role of fractals and spiritual expansion. Tuesday is healing our inner child. Wednesday is a corrective perspective on empowerment after trauma, 9 steps to freedom. That's a part 2. So if you didn't catch part 1, go check our website, look at the recording so you'll be up to speed. Um, Thursday is how to protect our children from cyberbullying, and Friday is riding the Corona Coaster Holiday Edition. So make sure you check us out next week. We needed longer than an hour today. I know, Tamara, I agree. Michelle said amplify unity with diversity. And we are having our Show Your Love campaign and donate. We've been having these conversations all year, 2020. Like Sarita said, the free Ampu and parent cafes, they're free to you, but they're not free to us. There is an expense. There even is an expense hosting these webinars. So we would like you to go on our website, donate. We want to continue to provide this free content to finance our technical support, to be able to finance and promote to get a wider audience, to compensate repeat webinar presenters for their invaluable time and effort. So if you really value this community and this content, please donate today at www.strongfamilies.org. Each donation has really cool gifts attached to it. So please check us out. $5, $10, anything would be helpful as we continue to do this work. Next slide, please. And get your BSF mask today and express your values. So we have the face mask with the Be Strong Family logo. And then we have the hashtag Amplify face mask, which is my personal favorite. I just love the design. You can get that bestrongfamilies.org/products. And last but not least, if you know someone you or a colleague would like to host a webinar with us, please contact our CEO, Kathy, at bestrongfamilies.net. Michelle wrote, amplify with
Hashtag
unity.
amplify.
Oh,
There
yeah, I
you go.
got thrown off here. The PowerPoint. But yeah, hashtag amplify unity with diversity. I love that, Michelle. Please go post that.
Thank
Um,
you guys.
I think
Thank
everyone
you.
has completed the poll.
Michelle said, thank you for this webinar. I learned about this webinar through the presentation that Spark was a part of yesterday. I'm so glad I learned about this. We are too, Michelle. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the great conversations. You guys were like on point today with this conversation. Do you know how hard this would have been if you guys hadn't talked? This is why cafes are so important, because your sharing makes the cafe and your sharing makes these webinars. And so thank you guys so much for being a part of today's conversation. We appreciate you.
And when you
Fantastic
share,
job, Alex.
thank you. And when you share like this, it's the mutual learning. I learned so much from you all today, personally, being able to take some of what you share into what I do and practice with my daughters. So it's really an example of what happens in the cafes when people are sharing. We appreciate you. Happy holidays.
Happy
Um,
holidays.
but like I
Y'all
said,
leaving already?
these are important conversations. I know, right? We got a couple more. We just got up for Thanksgiving. Michelle says your openness and vulnerability leads to us to feel safe and to share. You definitely practice what you teach. And thank you. Thank you, Michelle. I think, we could all just be vulnerable. That's what we see our humanity in each other, right? Like we see the humanity in each other. And nobody has it all. Like we all a work in progress. You know, there's this thing that say you don't know how well you did your parenting, how well you were a good parent until your kids are grown. So it's like an experiment. And even then, you have grown kids. My kids are getting there. But even then, parenting never stops. It's always
Yep,
a work in
never stops.
progress. Yep. So
All right, thanks, guys. It's 1 o'clock. Enjoy your weekend.
bye.